Hello everyone, good day. Today we're about to discuss the GAGNE's 9 events and the BLOOMS revised taxonomy. Before anything else, by the way, we are the Group E.
Good day to all. By the way, I am Lawrence Baligwat Mangat, the first reporter of uh, Group E. And now, uh, the first thing that I'm talking about is the GAGNE's 9 event of instruction. So, who is Robert GAGNE? So Robert GAGNE was an educational psychologist that is best known for his condition of learning, and also this 9 event instruction GAGNE has created has been widely used in the educative process. So this instructional model has focused on providing teachers an organized process efficiently designed to help maintain efficiency the teaching learning process. So now we have the GAGNE's 9 event of instruction. And according to GAGNE, the first one is gain attention or reception. The second one is inform learner of the objective or the expectancy. The third one is stimulate recall of prior learning or retrieval. So the fourth one is presenting stimulus or present information or selective perception. The fifth one is provide guidance or semantic encoding. The sixth one is the elicit performance or responding. The seventh one is provide feedback or reinforcement. Then the eighth one is assess performance or retrieval. And last one is enhance retention and transfer or generalization. So this is the GAGNE's 9 event of instruction. So be sure to remember it, guys. So now let's go back to the first one, which is gaining attention or reception. So this is the part wherein the teacher must get the attention of the learners and keep them focused while the content of the lesson is about to be delivered. So it's what we call motivation. So when teach, di po pwede na direct po ang teach. So we have to make our learners ready. First, we have to gain their attention to make them ready to receive the new information that we are going to talk about or to discuss. So the next one is informing learners of the objectives or the expectancy. So this is to lay down your expectation and focus on the learning and announce objectives, help learners have an overview of how their performance will be assessed and value of the content in the future. So I don't know if you have already learned about lesson planning, but the first thing that we do when we teach the children, we have to make sure that our students know what they're to be expected to learn at the end of every discussion or lesson. So we have to inform learners of the objectives because they need to know what to expect in the discussion. Then, so let's recall. The first one is gain attention or reception. The second one is informing learner of the objectives or expectancy. Now, let's move on to the third one, the stimulating recall of prior learning or retrieval. So, this is based on the schema theory wherein students' prior knowledge will be linked and associated with the newly introduced knowledge. So to make it simple, I think we can relate it to a review. We can review the students with their prior learning to connect it to the new knowledge that they have learned. So this is the stimulating recall of prior learning. Excuse me. So the balik ka sugod sa itong sauna, hindi ta makalimot. So the first one is gaining attention. The second one is informing learners of the objective. Then the third one is stimulating recall of prior learning or retrieval. So now let's move on to the next one. It is to present information or selective perception. So this is where the new content will be systematically organized for the learning process to be achieved. One important matter to be considered is the varied learning style of the learners. This differentiated instruction is highly recommended. So after we review now, we are going to present the stimulus or the selective perception. So in short, this is where what we call the lesson proper. So we present the stimulus. This is where our discussion should be presented. Because you already gained their attention, you've informed the learners of the objectives, you recall their prior learning. So now it's time to present the information or the selective perception. So the next one is provide guidance or semantic encoding. So this is where facilitation of learning process should be taken into high consideration, especially when learners are drawing in new knowledge and associating it to their prior knowledge to avoid negative transfer. So, learning guidance to provide guidance. We all know that not all of the students will learn the same pace. We as teachers, we know that not all of them have the same level of understanding. So, we have to provide our learners guidance or what we call scaffolding or semantic encoding. So, as teacher, we need to ensure that we have to give more example and be more specific about it. So, para mas maka-learn ang student and that will serve as support or guidance for them. So this is the provide guidance or semantic encoding. So again, review natin. The first one is gain attention. The second one is inform learners of the objective. The third one is stimulate recall of prior learning or retrieval. The fourth one is present information or selective perception. And fifth one is provide guidance or semantic encoding. Now, let's move on to the next one. Elicit performance or responding. This can be in the form of individualized or group, output based or a process based, and outright performance or homework. So after we present and provide guidance, now we have to let the students perform, or they need to respond, so that we will know if they understand the topic that we discussed to them. So as you can see, this can be in the form of pair, duo, or a group based, process based, or a homework. So and after they elicit their performance, it's time to provide feedback or reinforcement. So this is one of the essential parts wherein learners will be able to understand whether the learner process is a success or needs to be enhanced or revisited. So when you ask them to perform some task, you have to provide them with feedback that is reinforced, whether it is positive or a negative. So this is important part where the learners will be able to understand if they succeed in that activity or they need to be enhanced in that activity or lesson that you discuss. So this is provide feedback or reinforcement. So let's review one last time. So what the first one is gain attention or reception. The second one is inform learners of the objectives or expectancy. The third one is stimulate prior learning or retrieval. The fourth one is selective perception. The fifth one is provide guidance. The sixth one is elicit performance or responding. The seventh one is provide feedback or reinforcement. So the last two of the GAGNE's 9 event of instruction will be discussed by my group mates. So the assessment performance or retrieval, and the ninth one or the last one, the enhanced retention and transfer or generalization. So this would be all, and thank you for watching and listening.
Hello everyone. By the way, my name is Eugenio T. Peritos Jr. and I will going to discuss the 8th event, which is the assess performance, and the last event, which is the enhanced retention transfer of Robert Gagne's 9 event of instruction. So we will focus first on the assess performance. Assess performance or retrieval. So this is one of the most anticipated parts of the students' performance, wherein they were able to know if the expected outcome or the learning objectives has been met, or there is a need for them to expound their knowledge. So, meaning to say, it is a method of assessing students that requires them to directly demonstrate what they know and are capable of doing through an open-ended task, such as constructing an answer, creating a project, or performing an activity. So the ultimate method of learning is recall, also known as remembering. So when you try to recall something, your brain replaces a pattern of a neural activity that you have previously experienced. So the more you practice recalling this information, the more solidified this similar pattern becomes. So assessments are the official method of testing learner recall. So this assists students in understanding what they already know and what they need to spend more time learning. So assessments also collect important learning data that we can use to improve instruction as designers. So there are tips of assessing performance. So meaning and example. Quizzes or other assignments should be included in instructional design lessons to confirm the mastery of the objectives. So at each level, it includes milestone tests, and assessments. So pre-testing could assist students in determining how much they are prepared to know and whether they can and should skip certain sections of the course or concentrate on specific topics. So another is post-testing should be used to confirm whether learners have mastered a specific content through the use of online quizzes, word games, or multiple choice questions. So next we have questions or observation. So this is usually comes at the end of the experience. It's when we want to see, okay, did this person actually learn anything? And a common way to do this is this multiple choice questions, as I have said earlier, or this assessment. So but you can also do this with the observation for things that are a bit more visual, when you can see someone performing it correctly, and we can go much deeper into this. But what's the main idea here when you're assessing that performance and seeing if someone actually did learn? So next is we have gives helpful data to learner and instructor. So what they're supposed to learn is that you're getting useful data for both the person going through that learning experience and instructor or the designer. So the person going through the experience, if they fail that assessment, at the end it gives them a pretty idea that okay, I'm not ready, I need to go back and study and this information more, so I need to look at some other sources, maybe get some coaching so that I can get on the right track with this. And if you're the designer and you are seeing people fail, so the assessment can provide you with useful information about how to improve the learning experience or the assessment to make it more in line with the learning objectives. So I will show you a video for a better understanding and give you another example about assess performance.
Robert Gagne's 9 events of instruction make an effective instructional design model that addresses the conditions necessary for learning. There are 9 events in the model: gain attention, inform learners of objectives, stimulate recall of prior learning, present the content, provide learning guidance, elicit performance, provide feedback, assess performance, and enhance retention and transfer to the job. In this video, we'll be focusing on the 8th event, assess performance. In order for learning to take place, you've got to assess whether or not your learners have achieved the objectives of your instruction. So, Event 8 has a close relationship with Event 2, when you informed your learners of these objectives in the first place. Let's say you've been teaching a new class of Little League basketball referees the signals for various calls. If your objective in Event 2 was to simply have them be able to recall these signals on demand, you could assess their performance through a series of drills, perhaps by stating calls randomly and seeing how well they produce the signals from memory. Or perhaps your objective in Event 2 was for your learners to be able to use the signals when making calls during a basketball game. To assess this, you would have to plan to have some people playing basketball for them to make calls with. To simplify it, you could have the trainees take turns playing and making calls. To succeed at Event 8, assess performance, you need to think about it in conjunction with Event 2, inform learners of objectives. Plan these events with one another in mind, and you will set your students up for success. Once you have assessed performance, you will be ready to move on to GAGNE's 9th and final event, Enhance Retention and Transfer to the Job.
So now, we have the Enhanced Retention Transfer or Generalization. So this is an additional input to allow learners retention of new knowledge. So this can be in the form of additional reinforcement through practices and summarization. So the goal of the last event is to enhance retention and transfer. So learners must be able to apply their knowledge to real-world situations by the end of your instruction. So this is without a doubt the most difficult of GAGNE's events. So make sure that you give students plenty of opportunities to practice. So we have tips to enhance retention and transfer. So we have mirrored the performance context. So imagine the situation when the person is going to have actually used this new knowledge or these new skills, and try to mirror that situation in the learning experience. So this is good for the simulations when you really put someone in that same situation, that they would be in the real life, and then you give them the guidance they need to use the skills and that knowledge in that real-world context. So next we have provide job aids. So job aids are another excellent way to accomplish this. As if you've only just learned what you've learned in the last 20 minutes or so. Now, you can get it on this one-page job aid and take it with you to work. And you can see how the job aid helps with enhanced transfer by acting as a connector between the learning experience and the actual job. So you can quickly refer to it without having to go back and repeat the learning experience for another couple of minutes whenever you need a quick refresher. So next we have the relate content to real-world situations. So when we relate course material to our real-life situations, so we acknowledge the potential of prior experience to enhance learning, while also informing our students that they must connect new information to their own experiences. Okay, so I have here the 9 events of instruction according to Robert GAGNE and the techniques. For gaining attention, pose thought to provoke questions, present an intriguing problem, and present meaningful and relevant challenges. So number 2, informing learners of the objective. So describe what they will be able to do after the session. Describe the required performance and its criteria, and explain how the learning will benefit them. So stimulate recall of prior information. So ask questions on their previous experience, ask about their understanding of the previous concepts, and gives a similar situation to what they will be learning. And present information. So organize content in easy to understand manner, chunk information, use multiple delivery methods, a variety of text and graphics as well as approaches. We have provide guidance, so concept mapping for an association, graphics to make visual associations, mnemonics to Q and prompt learning, and analogies on knowledge construction, case studies for a real-world application. And elicit performance, have the learner demonstrate the acquired behavior or knowledge of the content. Ask thought-provoking questions. Have thought-provoking questions. Have the learner apply the knowledge to a scenario or case study. So provide feedback reinforcement, be positive, be objective, deliver focused and concise feedback to areas of students' control, and assess performance or retrieval, written test, oral questioning, short essays or questionnaires, etc. And enhance retention transfer, have them summarize the content, have them generate examples, and have them create concept maps. So I have also a video presentation here about the enhanced retention transfer or generalization.
Enhance retention and transfer to the job. In order for learning to take place, you've got to provide learners with a way to remember what they've learned and apply it in the right context. Let's say you just finished teaching a group of salespeople the selling points of a new product. One way you could enhance retention and transfer to the job would be with a job aid. You could send them away with a card that has an acronym that sums up the points. That way, they would be able to study and recall the points easily. Another way to enhance retention is with a follow-up. In our example, this could take the form of a follow-up email or text, reminding your learners of the technique and even asking them to share their experiences using it. And there are other strategies as well, including having them generate examples, summarize the content themselves, or create their own reference material. To succeed at Event 9, enhance retention and transfer to the job, you need to think ahead to what your learners will be doing after your instruction is over. What else will they need to apply what they have learned? This bit of extra planning will set them up for success. And that concludes this video series on Gagne's 9 events of instruction.
Robert Gagne's 9 events of instruction model assists trainers, educators, and instructional designers in structuring their training sessions. So the model is a systematic process that assists them in developing strategies and activities for instructional classes. So the 9 events serve as a framework for an effective learning process. So that would be all, and thank you so much.
Hello, good day everyone. I am Mia Molero. So the topic that I will be discussing today is about Bloom's revised taxonomy. So let's discuss first what is the original Bloom's taxonomy. So the original Bloom's taxonomy is a set of hierarchical models used for classification of educational learning objectives into levels of complexity and specificity. So it helps encourage and teach students to make their own decision, not just in classroom settings, but also helps promote a life skills. So in revised taxonomy, a group of cognitive psychologists, curriculum theorists, and instructional researchers and testing and assessment specialists published in 2001 a version of Bloom's taxonomy with the title A Taxonomy for Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. The revised taxonomy differentiates between knowing what the content of thinking and knowing how the procedures of solving problems. This will help teachers in guiding their students in cognitive learning process, and teachers use this framework to focus on higher order thinking skills. There are actually 6 levels of cognitive learning, which are the remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So let's discuss first the bottom of the pyramid, or the first level of cognitive learning, which is the remembering. So it is a simple retrieval, recall, and recognition of essential and relevant knowledge from long-term memory. So in this level of cognitive learning, students will be able to find and remember information, and we can use the words define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, and state. And we can also ask questions like what is, where is, how would you describe or name the parts of. In this level, students will ask questions to see if they have learned insights from the lessons. The next level that will be discussed is the understanding. So it is for to demonstrate comprehension by explaining facts. So in this level of cognitive learning, students will be able to understand and make sense of the information that's being discussed to them. So we can use the words classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, recognize, report, select, and translate. So we can also ask the students what is the main idea, how would you summarize, explain the process of, or discuss how. So in this level of cognitive learning, students will ask to interpret facts that they have learned. So that's the level. So the next level of cognitive learning will be discussed by the next reporter. So my discussion ends here. So that's all. Thank you. And
Hi, good afternoon everyone. I am Gracious May Agua, and today's video I will gonna share with you the continuation of the figure 2, which tackled about the Bloom's level of cognitive learning. Benjamin Bloom 1956 led his group in coming up with the list of instructional objectives in the cognitive learning. It was arranged from lowest to highest level. The first one is remember. Number 2 is understand. And number 3 is apply. Apply is to use information or skills and relate it to a new situation. It means that if you are not truly understand the information you read, probably you can apply it in a real life situation. Apply is to demonstrate, execute, do something into an action. For example, translation of the local dialect to the second language, demonstrate the different approaches of teaching or facilitative learning environment for learning. No, someday in God's time we will become a professional teachers, and one of the important thing we should do is to encourage the learners to be active in classroom environment to support their learnings, and it will lead them to engage for the learning process. And then another example is execute the basic steps in dancing. So it is a chance for you to experience how hard or easy the steps the moment you execute it. Analyze is like one kind of reading strategy, which are breaking down the difficult text into short, meaningful phrases, no? And this will help you to know the similarities, differences, the purpose, and overall structure. So for example, compare and contrast the similarities and differences of land and water animals. So terrestrial animals, they live in geographic areas which are land-based. Just for example, in the forest, grassland, desert, tundra, taiga, no? They are important because they provide food for living organism, and then they release oxygen, absorb the carbon dioxide of the air, and regulate the climate. And then the aquatic animals, they live in geographic areas which are water-based. So just for example, in freshwater or freshwater wetlands, no, they are important because they provide millions home for fish species and involved in the regulation of water cycle and climate formation. Evaluate means make judgments based on criteria and standards. So, in other words, when you evaluate something, the criteria or the standard must be followed. Determine the quality of manuscript according to the given standard. Judge whether methods used and demonstration of product is effective or not. So, if there is a product you need to promote, no, you will know that it is effective or not if it is according to the method, process, material they use. Or another example is when your teacher told you to do an assignment and write it on the paper and you use PDF file. So when you evaluate that situation, you are wrong because you are not following the instruction. And another example in reality issues, because of the standard of the beauty of American standard, or the artist shows beauty standard, you think and say to yourself that you are so very ugly. So next is create or produce, no, put the elements together to form a new coherent or functional whole. Reorganize elements into a new pattern or structure. So for example, compose a poem, write a thesis, write an essay of an event. So another example here is when your teacher told you to summarize the lessons. In this moment, you should not write the sentence or the meaning that was found on the modules. So you need to create your own concept and understanding based on what you have learned and what you've read. So the next is the verb of Bloom's level of cognitive learning. So number 1 is remember. It means can the student recall or remember the information? So when you make a questions, you will define a word or give the meaning for them to describe it, cite it, know what's the exact word. The second is to understand. It means that if the student can explain the ideas or the concept, so the verb is abstract, arrange, articulate, no, explain, discuss. No, and the next is apply. It means that can the student use the information in a new way so they can articulate, carry out, and classify. No. So analyze, it means that can the student distinguish between different parts? So they need to arrange, break down, categorize, test. No? The next is evaluate. Can the student justify a stand or decision? So they need, the verb is appraise, argue, assess, defend, support. So lastly is create. It means that can the student create a new product or a point of view. So they write, assemble, build, or collect. That's all, everyone. I hope you learned something and thank you for listening. God bless.